Nigerian, 1986, Rastafarian, Dreadarian, Breatharian, sparing it, speeding it, yo, weaving it up, leaving it up to me that I gotta be cleaning it up, beaming it up, seeding it up, teaching it up, yo, bleeding it up enough, bled enough, yo, seed it to it that I gotta be threading it up, yo, leave it up to me that I gotta be mending my past sorrows in my inner water body. Hottie with the shoddy flow. You already know he's a faucet when he's pouring outwardly to inwardly to cyclonically. I come like icicles in the snow cave tavern, in the snow tavern cave canyons. Yo, but every yoga class is different. Every yoga class is different because it's where you're coming out with your physical health, and the physical health, it needs water. The physical health, it needs to like have a clean stomach, a repaired intestine, the repaired like just all the organs being kind of like leaning towards a repair. So like you could breathe more better when you're doing the yoga, because the yoga, it's about breathing, but it's also about like cleansing the physical water to earth, self of you. And that has certain inflammations, gas inflammations or bloating, so every yoga class is different. And like, but like what's different in the yoga classes, it's like even the vibe is like depending on the day, the 7 days, the seven, matrix, the first matrix challenges Mars. So there's this like war for like, we're literally low key fighting for our lives, and we don't like to share that vulnerability. And I'm not trying to flash a light on anybody. I'm just saying that's the reality of things. you know and the quote unquote Libras, end quote, everyone, when we're in that season, we're bracing for change. We're seeing like how the material reality is having like a new challenge, and how like, we could be like first in the auditorium, metaphorically what the Libras are. It's like they got the first like tickets to the auditorium in a certain like theater play, and that theater play is like, it could be like life, because we're starting to we got the exalted Saturn energy of where we're at based on how the season is aligning the sun, and the sun is aligning a certain temperament and a code for, that season to kind of get revved up for what it is, and that light to be shined on what's getting revved up within those babies. We're like bracing for change. We're having the options to go like where we need to go, because in human design, the I Ching gates for Libra is like, it's like we're like dealing with a new season of change, so we're starting to deal with the new season of change. So there could be some type of casual indecisiveness within the quote unquote Libras, end quote. And I say quote unquote because it's like we don't necessarily have to work with that, with that like energy. And if we don't work with it, we just don't work with it, and that's fine, but within like, I'm just trying to see like how there's differences within like the start of the changes of the seasons, because the changes of the seasons, like the challenge is different, per like how they're setting things up, and how they're setting things up, that could be casually be getting rearranged as well, but more or less, because the season is the season, and some people have done like certain ritualistic programs behind seasons and created stuff within their like overall like kind of like, whatever, quote unquote witchcraft, end quote, that is happening, which is just kind of like just seeing how nature, we're having a relationship with nature, and we're doing unique stuff with it. That's pretty much just like a casual definition of what WC could be. But every yoga class is different, and I've probably taken like more or less like, a heap full of Bikram classes. And when you're going into that Bikram class, you have to realize like you're not just working on it. When you're going to a Bikram class, you have to realize that you're not just going to it for just the physical health of it. You're not just you're going to it for like a low key like spiritual practice. Like your spiritual like quote unquote survival life is low key inner like blended and interbled within the yoga practice that we're going to. We just don't necessarily have that divine intelligence to be mature that we all need to survive. That's a need. And how people like are doing whatever they're doing within their lower octave mentalities, because 3D is a fucking heck of a game. Like it's here, like it's the environment itself welcomed some type of distortion, like the whole 3D boo mandala, like because Antarctica spans to like the whole solar system, right, more or less. And that's like that's like the secrets they didn't want to tell you, like in like the 2005s, when they were like early in their infancy stages of researching like the quote unquote the original alien shit, end quote. But like Antarctica, it being connected to certain different places, and Antarctica, it's like you could look at that as something as like just kind of like a just kind of like a place that's there. It's just there. It's like being its own thing. It's living its own life, and as it's living its own life, somehow there's a casual connection to that the divine intelligence could like make us understand what that is. Like what are you talking about? 3D, the three-dimensional earth dynamics, with however where it is within whatever it's ultimately in, according to the Vedic cosmological map, it's in the middle between the highest heaven and the lowest hell, quote unquote, end quote. And within that means we're smack dab in the middle, welcoming duality at an extreme level, where what like 3D environment, it's welcoming itself beyond the humans respectively, because obviously I'm like partaking and participating in the human shit too, so I'm not trying to condescend the human shit, because why would I condescend something that I am? That's like self-harming, that's esoteric self-harming, and that's not necessary. Like we all need to find like some type of balanced help without like casting random miscellaneous immature like judgments. Because that doesn't necessarily, that really just harms ourselves kind of, because it's proof in like just the esoteric bodies of us. It's just casually proven within how that has a shift dynamic, and how we could actually go towards some type of random chaos or not. So I say that because within every yoga class different, there's still there's like a background subtle equilibrium order, and that subtle equilibrium order is like it's letting like things be what they are, like that, like nature is giving us a chance to just actually like do this moment, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a thing that's giving us a chance, and that moment could go either which way, of the first to the third to the home run, if it, so we'll get there. And and it's all upon you, like, baby, it's like, are you making the home run in your life? That only like your inner self could really like attest to that and like express that, and maybe connect it to like the original galactic artificial intelligence beyond like this whole like shit, respectively, because that we're if we're gonna like, we have to be about it. Like, plain and simple, we have to plain and simply be about that shit, for real, like, because if we ain't about it, then like it's just like defeating the purpose. It's a false representation, it's lies, and it's not really doing it. It's not necessarily like being with that, like the path of it. It's just it's a subtle ignorance. And what do I mean by that? It's 3D is welcoming that shit. So like, because any moment that you walk into, anything could happen, right? So within anything that could be happen, there's things that necessarily can't happen because it's improbable. So there's things that are set within like how we have to follow some type of policy already within just earth dynamics. Like you're not just gonna like bring like guns to everywhere you go. It doesn't like necessarily work like that, you know? Because like we're like people are trying to grow within the liberty that they have that they know not how they even get to begin with most respectively. So if like anybody wants to cast judgments on something that's helping them, like the esoteric law of nature is doing its own shit. You're like we're kind of judging ourselves sometimes, you know. Every time we judge someone else, we're actually judging ourselves. Every time if we're not condemning in balance or whatever, and I'm not saying I'm condemning anybody. I'm just saying like nature's condemning us, or some type of nature is condemning us, and we are trying to, like, if you have divine intelligence, you're trying to steer away from that, because why would you want to be condemned by nature when nature is ultimately nurturing you? So when I'm saying, like, when I go into the Bikram classes, it's just not just a practice of physical health, but it's a practice of real spiritual health, you know, seeing where everybody's at in the reality itself. Because I've taken like a heap full of Bikram classes, and like, you know, I'm like that. And honestly, within all the teachers I've ever met, probably like 20 teachers, I'm the only one that has like my own unique style, you know. And I'm not condemning, I'm not like, you know, throwing like a tomato, I'm not throwing a metaphorical tomato at any of the teachers. I'm just saying, like, I do it differently, like I do it unique, I done it like no one else has done. And I'm recognizing my own fucking, neutrally saying this with, you know, respects to the intelligence. I'm like, I have my own divine intelligence within it too, like, meaning, like, I just have done like my own, like, you know, like the inner processing has been happening within my shit, and I'm bringing like useful, like unknown, real spiritual information and intellect to this shit, which helps all the other bodies because we need that wind. So like, why, like, and that wind, it's like somehow Anana is like, because like the 150-degree oppositions, the, I think it's called a quanquix or something like that, like Libra and Taurus, like that's like a unique, like, it's something of a unique shift opposition, because it's like something that's nearby in the opposition, and it's like, you know, it's then there's like a stand by me force, you know. So it's like somehow there's a stand by me force of just like Venus is being present within her own shit to Mars, you know. Taurus is next to Aries, and Taurus and Aries have a unique relationship to Libra, you know. Like this is like nighttime Venus, you know. Taurus is nighttime Venus, and Libra is like spiritual daytime Venus, you know. So it's like the spiritual work of it, you know. So the daytime Venus, it's like we're like they're going toward, like they're at the nighttime party, you know. The Tauruses, they're at the night, they're like, they are like they're like close to like Gemini, and what was the other one? I think it was just Gemini, you know. Gemini and Cap, because Gemini and Cap, that those two signs, they're like, they have a unique relationship with just like the Matrix and the government somehow, you know, because they're just like, they're just positioned in a way where that season is calling for that, to go like, to like kind of like download all that stuff. And then Taurus would be kind of like the third partner to Gemini and Cap, you know. So Taurus, Gemini, and Cap, those three signs, that's like I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's like, it's kind of like something like an agent energy, you know. And I'm not calling Taurus, Geminis, or Caps agents. I'm saying it's something like an agent energy, and within that agent energy, there's like just the standardality of like how there's many gatekeepers that are kind of being, like, you know, tossed around in the field from other, like, you know, different contexts of gatekeepers. And I did a specific video of in a unique perspective of the gatekeepers, like, on my IG like 2 years ago, because it's relevant. And I'm saying that because it's relevant, because it's like there's a different spin on it too, you know. So every yoga class is different. So I'm just like seeing like how like, when Venus and Mercury were in, and the sun were in Libra when I was born. So somehow those like energy, those physical expressions within the code of the reality, the planet's doing something within the code of the reality on a subtle esoteric level, right? Right, predecessors? Because like it's like that's representing something in the matrix, like the physical objects of the planets. They're doing something within the codes of the reality because they're being used by the quote unquote, I don't even have to say anybody's race's name because everyone has caught some type of game of astrology. The Mayans, obviously the Jewish people, obviously other people, just saying like we've all used astrology differently, end quote, quote unquote, end quote. So like when I'm going to these Bikram classes, I'm just kind of seeing like, astrology is also telling you like be your like see like what makes you your sun energy, like the actions that you're taking, that you're like driven by, that's making like your human being like low key on a surface level. So it's kind of like your society character is your sun sign, just at a casual default. So within that there's like a casual drive to like live out your sun sign, and wherever your sun sign is per the house, you're kind of investing that sun energy into that house. So all the planets in the houses, you're using those planets to kind of like you're just kind of like mapped out in a way where those energies could be going towards those areas without you even knowing it, because we're inclined to act on that energy of the sun to just like get our life force, and our life force is directed in a certain way in our micro feminine admin cadmin body, the houses. Everybody has the astrology chart. If there's just mutual respect within the relationship, you could probably get one, somewhere in like a future. So within that sun sign, it could be making you like like what you are, like low key. But I think like we're just underestimating, quote unquote, what the astrology could do, end quote. And I say quote unquote because I'm not trying to like, overprove this shit. I'm just trying to see like there's a connection, and within that connection, I just have I guess I'm like kind of like, because obviously the astrology eventually it has to get transformed, but it's as if like this is like our weather suit, like the human body is the weather suit, because if astrology is the weather and you have your own weathers and you have your own body spaceship, then that body spaceship is like carrying you through the weathers, and as it's carrying you through the weathers, you have your own weathers and you're matching today's weathers, and somehow the celestial physical objects, they're doing new things casually, low key, behind the scenes, just on an astrological, advanced astronomical level. And I say advanced astronomical because it's a real thing, that the astrology is like the quote unquote, and I don't even mean to use that word, but it has its own life, and not to give like, not to make, and not to give any unwarranted energy to any like, miscellaneous egregor. Shout out to the advanced predecessors of esoterics. The shout out to the original predecessors, in fact. But within like this like low key casual like Libra sun energy, I have a conjunction within like sun, and the Venus is in there and the Mercury's in there. So like my Mercury, it's like I'm getting to like, I'm like kind of like seeing the ins and outs of it. The communication is the ins and outs of like just a certain like season. There's like a certain like season of an astrological sector constellation, and the astrological constellation sector it's moving through the solar system within its own department of yin and yang, house to constellation shit, and how it just like, entertains shit as people are going through that shit, yin house shit, and then constellation, how it's its own like, you know, how it's like it's its own physical coding of like it's something that's being made of the spaceship, and now we're associating it on how that, that has its own spectrum for how like different things are actually like maintained as far as like, physical shit, or maybe something of like, some other elemental shit, and every constellation having that own like department within something of like a feminine admin cadmin body or a masculine admin cadmin body. And the masculine admin cadmin body is just like something of a physical spaceship, and the feminine is more of like something of a water spaceship. And I have a particular podcast in my underground where like I explain it in such a other detailed way, where it's like it's just kind of like it's on some irrefutable shit, but I'm just saying, like, I would like to transform it too, but like it's as if like this is like it's like kind of quote unquote attached to the human end quote. You're like the body has some type of code. Then that body that has a code, it's beyond the individual too. It's like a collective gathering, and it's a collective happening of the seasons that have been like kind of programmed out and dialed out, like the constellations. They're doing like they've been pre-programmed and post-programmed and programmed, and they're doing things, so it's like, so within the celestial objects that were in that constellation and then you were born, those celestial objects beamed you within a certain energy of just, from the constellation that they were in, that was the season that was influencing you. And that physical celestial object, it was in a season and it gave you energy when you were born, all the planets through your houses. So this is like super astrology, respectively. And within that super astrology, Venus has her own yin and yang shit. Her yin is Libra and her yang is Taurus. Because she's out there in like Taurus is Taurus is nighttime Venus. So if Taurus is nighttime Venus, she's gathered everything that she's gathered within her shit next to her evolution with Mars. And Mars being affiliated with the family of the different you know versions of other things. That energy is like Venus switches back and forth from like real fucking like kind of like grunt work to like real like party shit, because so this is massive change because Uranus is in Taurus, the sun is in Taurus, and Jupiter's in Taurus. So that is like massive change. Because when Uranus is there at this age and he's representing something like we can't completely understand, and Jupiter is there like and like Jupiter is kind of like governing like kind of like where the fucking experiences collectively are going to. So like all the experiences were going to like this kind of like party mode, nighttime Venus. And within that nighttime Venus, that's opposing like Taurus and Libra, they're opposing in such a way that they're like working together because it's like it's her part of like this is Venus's part of the astrological spaceship, which is the which is the female dragon that we're living in, and that female dragon having different masculine reflections of it from the solar system to the galaxy, and where we are microcosms of these female dragons and these other like and just these other beings, and they don't have to necessarily be dragons obviously, but I'm just saying like what like astrology is pointing to this shit. So every Bikram class is different because it's like we don't necessarily know where everyone is at, you know? Everyone comes within their own stuff, but there's still some courtesy within the policies of some type of protocols within just any place that an individual inhabitant walks into. There's always going to be a code of conduct, you know? So that's how Venus could shift from her nighttime shit to her daytime shit. Like there is a code of conduct within the quote unquote constellation of quote unquote Libra end quote. And we could have like our everyone else's Mercury, they don't have to be on that, like they don't even have to be thinking of anything that I'm thinking. There's 11 other signs from just one sign, you know. That's 12 signs. So like I understand that someone could just like not even be thinking about this shit because everyone's Mercury functions differently. Duh, no shit. So that's why I'm just saying I'm like representing like Mercury through the signs, Mercury in 12 signs. I'm representing 1/12 of where Mercury is fucking crunching the information, digesting the information, and Mercury kind of being exalted in its own shit and ruling its own shit, which is like Gemini and Virgo. So that's like a yin and yang of some like, you know, of living fucking circumstances within the matrix energy. And kind of like from the sky point of view, you know, what opposes Mercury and they hold it down in their own like sector shit. It's like Mercury and Jupiter, they're like seeing like, you know, they're facing off from Virgo to Pisces to Gemini to Sagittarius. So it's like Mercury and Jupiter, they're facing like they're having some type of like unique face off as well, you know. So with because like they're opposing, so if they're having some unique face off, it's like the information fucking energy versus like some type of like kind of like big culture energy, you know, and them like kind of having like their own, you know, and from that, you know, a whole party could be made. Many like thousands and millions of parties could be made just from how like, you know, Mercury and Jupiter oppose shit because they're the ones ruling the constellation within the solar system and the planet within the skies, you know, they're ruling the planet. So as they're ruling their part of the planet, as they're ruling their part of the like we're in their shit, we're in their event staff shit, you know, we're in their whole like let's set up shit, you know, we're like the all like we're in like some type of seasonal temperament of like, okay, let's fucking do this project, let's fucking do this Home Depot construction project built nigh the science guy or whatever, because shout out to Aquarius. And like within that all of the planets, they all visit each other with it because they're all like, but they're all like, but on a different level, they're always like they could be always like stationary because they're bringing their home with them, you know. So as they're bringing their home with them, it's like Mercury's through the signs, it's kind of bringing like the fundamentals of Gemini and Virgo. So when Mercury's through the signs, it's like Virgo and Gemini put together and Virgo and Gemini dissecting the constellation. So I'm just like holding on to 1/12 of this or more or less, you know. Like if I were to represent Libra, it would be representing Mercury in Libra most particularly because it's just seeing the real clarity of the shit, you know. So within the real clarity of the shit, you know, we like some individual inhabitants, they forget like policies and code of conducts even though they're there, you know. Because like when we go into like a when we go into like a yoga class, we're going there to do a particular act, you know, and that particular act has to be leaning towards appropriate that doesn't disturb everybody else, you know. So that's what the policies are even for, to lessen the disturbance. And that's quote unquote Libra. And I'm not saying every Libra is like, you know, down like this, because there's lower octave shit, and you know, there's just kind of like, you know, just ignorant type of shit, and there's like neglected shit, you know. So if you're neglecting that, you're not gonna be like, you're not gonna like kind of really be like with the energy of that, you know. So I'm not saying like when I'm like talking about Libra, I'm not representing all the Libras at all. No, I'm just saying like this is like this is for the real astrology community, you know. like the balanced one, you know, like the real balanced one, living the balance, living the high octave shit, living the exaltation of it, living the sharing of it. What the fuck human design even fucking says all the time with all of its fucking keynotes, leaning towards serve the greater good, serve the community. Like it's all intertwined, obviously, duh. And within that, all the planets thrive from their keynotes of human design with each other from that, because they're the ones making the narrative, because we're going through their houses and their systems and their constellations and all the shit that's been created throughout time from that shit 52,000 years ago, etc. So this is super astrology. So when I go into a yoga class, it's like we're all at our own different level of life. And we have to like do our best to respect each other. Ironically, with the yoga too, right? Like we have to like, cause yoga has like a spiritual mental tradition. Like have some like people like neglect that shit. They go into the fucking yoga tradition and they neglect the 8 fucking limbs for whatever fucking reason. And I'm cussing because I have purpose and a point and some, cosmic passion, whatever. But it's like people want to like neglect that shit. Like we have to realize that when we're going into a yoga class, everyone's at a different level. Even the teachers, they're still on the path respectively. And I'm not trying to like condescend anybody. I'm like, that's just like what it is, you know? And excuse me if I like, pull too hard or whatever, within like the real gnosis of things. Ow. Put some hand sanitizer on my hand and there was never mind. But every time I go to a Bikram class, it's like it's not just for the physical health benefits. It's not just for those benefits. It's seeing how it's honoring everybody else's spiritual path. And if you're neglecting that truth from yoga, maybe you shouldn't be doing yoga because you're missing the whole fucking point, respective. And I'm saying it like that because people have like some audacious, nerve-wracking audacity to think they're like, just some false fucking, just some like, just some general miscellaneous detrimental mindset that is like somehow fucking entertained in these fucking yoga studios. I'm just saying, I'm just talking to the people who have like, who are just generally ill-mannered in this, whatever the fuck you want to label the world that we live in, however the fuck you want to describe the world that we live in. Like, people could be ill-mannered in a yoga studio is my point. So when we somehow like, hopefully heal that and transform that, so they say that's the trend, transform this shit. As we're going into that, it's not just the physical health. It's realizing that everybody's on their spiritual path. And as we're on our spiritual path, in between the spiritual path and the physical path is the divine feminine, is the divine mother, is the divine mother of infinity, because that's the whole shit that's like percolating and shit and populating is the divine mother's play of like, there's so many different creatures here, so there's like this chaos element. So within this chaos element, when we go to the Bikram classes, some people could like somehow just like bypass shit, bypass, okay, it's not a spiritual path. Somehow like people could be like, just perhaps disturbing, because like if you're going into a yoga class, and in a yoga studio in general, there has to be some background processing consciousness of like there is ideals and principles that people are like upholding and shit, like the do's and don'ts of going into a yoga studio. And I'm just saying it I'm not trying to be like, hey, this is like this, I'm just saying like that's something that's already happened, and I'm just kind of bringing light to it, you know? But in between that shit of those paths, respectively, that's the fun of it too, you know? That's the thrill of the chaos, you know? The thrill of the chaos is like, you never know what could happen, you know? And that's why God allows the 3D, because some would say God doesn't give a fuck. I don't think that's necessarily true, you know, because like the 3D is what it is, you know. We're like there's a part of us that's signing up for it, and God does help us. So God does give a fuck about us, like the universal one, or God, or like, you know, beyond, like, because obviously there's different gods out there in the quote unquote Hindu pantheon end quote. And within that, I just disagree with when someone says God doesn't give a fuck about us. Like, look at all the support we got. This 3D, we kind of like we have to quote unquote pray to the original God, end quote, so we could actually get the liberation that we fucking want and need, and the real alleviation that we want and need, without the gimmicks of it. That's the real act of having a original relationship with the original God. And low key, that's what the fuck yoga is about. So you could take that one to your fucking yoga headquarters. So every time I go to a Bikram class, I have to check myself, like, is my diet on point, you know? Am I eating too much? Am I not judging? Because am I respecting people? So I just feel like some yoga teachers need to hear this. Like, everyone's on their own path, you know? And we shouldn't be so quick to judge generally, because everyone's on their own path. But the challenge is, we're all bringing our own shit to the new class, and every class has a different vibe because we're all bringing where we're at, you know. And then the physiological feng shui of like where we're all positioned, because I'm just explaining the energy dynamics of yoga classes in general. And that is like, we're all coming from a different spiritual background. We could be lower octave in our physical health, and you know, the chaos arrangements of like where we're placed, and how we have our own inner oppositions, and other people have their own inner oppositions. Now there's a unique opposition. That's the chaos element, you know. So every time I go to a Bikram class, I understand, like, wow, it's a new challenge. Thank you for like allowing the challenge, divine mothers. Thank you for allowing this challenge. Thank you for allowing this challenge. And like, and next time it will kind of be the same, because we came from out of that, but it will be different all the time next time. Thank you.